Without that provision to continue with using the low rating, it makes no sense. And the player now says, I can't play in the lower section, but I have lower rating. Why not? And if you assign the rating, it becomes absolutely clear as to why, and it also becomes clear as to what prizes that person is eligible for.
Richard, I thought I had answered or touched on that with my initial comments. The reason that we are doing this is because the USCF rating system is really the standard we want to use to run all our tournaments, and we do not want to draw particular attention to other systems that might exist.
Dwayne Pulich from Washington State here. We are, of course, in one of the areas where we have our Northwest class grading system here for Washington and Oregon. One of our main organizers for Scholastic events is Elliot Neff. I know he is trying to encourage more USCF events for the elementary students, but again, the Northwest rating system has been strongly entrenched here. And I heard through a secondhand comment that apparently USCF at one point in time offered a free year's membership to beginning Scholastic students, which gave them the opportunity to play in more USCF events. And whether or not that might be a consideration to consider again to help alleviate this problem.
Jim in New Jersey. Somebody came up before and said that this motion is unnecessary because a tournament director has the power to assign a higher rating, and that this could be considered arbitrary and capricious. Well, let me tell you that if you try to explain to the parent of a 10-year-old why their son can't play in the under 800 section because you think he's better than that, that's arbitrary and capricious. However, if I say he's got a rating in the East Elbow, Idaho Chess Foundation of 1,700, that's a fact that can't be disputed. Therefore, I think it's an excellent idea, and we should approve it.
David Coons from Minnesota. The Scholastic School Chess Association of Minnesota does not rate their events at all. It's completely unrated. There is no information to be garnered from these kids. The School Chess Association and the Minnesota Chess Association encourages the players to play in regular rated events, non-scholastic. Most of the kids that come to the Nationals do have a non-scholastic rating. Okay, but a few do not. However, we have no information in which to estimate that rating, and no matter how hard the tournament organizer is going to look them up, they're not going to be rated. They're not a foreign player. They are not any other rated play. I think that this does not cover. I'm sure Minnesota is not the only state under this kind of situation. Yes, we're encouraging them to play rated chess. However, you're going to get a kid from Minnesota anyway that you're not going to be able to find a rating for.
Thank you. Approximately 15 years ago, I created a publication called The Guide to Scholastic Chess. And there are two rating systems, one the Harkness and one that I created myself. It was intended specifically for clubs to give kids a sense of where they were within the club. In no way would that be expected to be applied in any of this right here. But there are certainly local, regional, and almost we might say national, there are systems out there which can be used as a guide, and I support the fact that those can be used as a guide in helping us get the right section. You see, when Nationals first started, it was all one section. I know, because I went to most of them with teams. Now that we have multiple sections, it's very easy sometimes to withhold a student. Finally, I would conclude the following. Are we dealing with a level playing field? If I'm a parent who has a child who's rated 775, and I find out later that some other system that he's been in for a year, 2 years, or 3 years puts him in as a rating system in rating of, say, 1,400 or 1,300, I think I would be concerned. Where is the level playing field?
I kind of think that the way this is worded, the part about it that bothers me is that it says that you cannot use it for pairings. And if you're a TD and you know that there's a student who's 1,600 in strength because they won 50 Northwest Scholastic chess tournaments and they come in with a rating of 500, and you have to give them, your way is making me have to use a 500 rating when I know that she was 1,600, 1,800, something like that. The way it is right now, the TD has discretion. If you pass this, you force us not to be able to use what we know is a real rating that she has. Yeah, it says you cannot use it for pairings.
It's only for putting them in the section. They are still paired as their USCF rating.
The TD still would have the discretion of assigning a higher rating for pairing purposes. This only affects placement. This motion, it doesn't affect the TD standard.
Because that's what I want to be able to still have that discretion as a TD.
Yeah.
It's not a rules change. It's only for them. It's not a rules change.
We have lots of situations now. It was mentioned about non-rated players. Non-rated players and non-rated sections, they're all together in that one section. We recognize there could be lots of people coming in that have never played in the U.S. and have played in foreign countries and go in there without a rating. The non-rated section expects that. But we're concerned about players that come in with low ratings and jump into the under 12, the under 14, the under 1,600, and walk away with all the trophies. And we've had some cases with incredible disparity in the ratings where kids have walked away with that. I know I was fortunate enough to get a kid from the Portland area that came down to join my chess club. He is a 5th grader, played his first tournament, he had no rating. In 2 years, he's over 1,900. And it took him more than 8 games, but it took him a number of games to do that, but he was way overrated, he was way underrated in all those tournaments he played in. And he just played the World Open. He got 5.5 out of the 7 games that he played in, and he was playing up a section. So it takes a while for this to catch up. If we could use a local rating, it really would help a lot of people.
Hi, Mike Huffar from Virginia. Some of you that may know me, I've been TV a lot with the National Scholastics events and have seen the practical problems that are the result of the issue we're trying to resolve here. My only concern with the wording that we have here is that there's this little phrase that says the USCF will require players to disclose. Okay, I think that's unenforceable. What are we going to do if they don't? So that may be a little piece in there that is not really enforceable in any way. It's not ways of knowing how you came to the tournament, you're out of here or something. So I just think that we probably need to take some closer look at our wording here, that we're on the right track.
I would say the sanction would probably be up to the office to impose some sort of sanction, and likely that would just be after the fact. The key thing, the scholastic community is pretty self-policing. Believe me, I hear about most of these things before the tournaments ever occur. So with it being that self-policing, when they don't disclose it, and we've given them the opportunity to disclose it, then they're not going to have much of an argument when they're moved. And that would be the sanction, would be to move them. One thing that you don't want to get into is a situation where they're not being given an opportunity to disclose, and you move them after the fact, after they bought their plane tickets, and then they start squawking, well, I paid all this money, I wouldn't have come if I knew you were going to do that. Well, here we're making it very clear to disclose it. Also, this is a much more complicated issue. It's really a multi-pronged approach that we're looking at taking here. This is just one of 3 prongs. We also have Regulation 12.5 to have some minimal limit of games to play in an undersection. As if we're using the USCF rating to measure your strength to see if you're eligible for the undersection, shouldn't there be some recent activity to ensure some level of accuracy with that measure? But what we get in certain areas is there's not that much activity. So by requiring some activity, it doesn't fix it if we have areas that are and we have pockets in the country that are deflated. But if it's deflated, then playing in games, and brought this point up, if playing in games will not fix that deflation because they're playing games themselves. So we also are working with the ratings committee to take a look at pockets of unusual deflation and make adjustments regionally associated with that too. And if you have a multi-pronged approach of...
Bill Hall, you're out of time. Frank?
Hi, Frank Willow from Texas. I'm in a unique situation here. I will be the chief video supernational. That said, I have questions about the part that says such adjusted ratings will not be published on wall charts or used for parents. Obviously, if we take the students out of the under section, whatever that under section may be, and put them in a higher section, that's fine. That said, in the championship sections, we have under prices. So how do we handle that? Because here it says will not be used for parents or wall charts. So if you don't use them for parents or wall charts, a real good player may still get an under price in the championship section that they might not be really entitled to, I guess.
I think, look at that, Frank, I don't think it will impact prices as seriously, because if you go up into the section and you're looking at the under price, even if you bump somebody up a couple of hundred, they'll still be eligible for the same under price in that higher section. I don't think that's going to impact the prices as much. It will impact parents. It will impact.
Tim? Oh,
Yes,
Daryl's next.
I want to comment on the notion of the power of the tournament director to impute ratings to solve this problem. I believe that, especially at the nationals and super nationals, this should be an organizer's call. We should not put this responsibility on the shoulders of the tournament director. That absolutely looks like it's arbitrary and capricious. Making it a policy of the organizer, which is the U.S. Justice Federation, seems much wiser.
Call the question.
Are there any objections to calling the question?
Yes, I object.
Okay, we'll vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question? Let's count. Okay, all opposed? Does it have to be 2/3? Okay, we'll need to count. Walter? Okay, all in favor of calling the question? All opposed? It's not 2/3. Discussion will continue. Bill Goichberg. The 2-minute rule's in effect.
Regarding the issue of using for pairings and posting on wall charts, the idea is we don't want to give recognition to competing systems by showing their rating on the wall chart. However, if the director wishes, the director could post some sort of an estimated rating. This doesn't prevent that. So, I wouldn't be concerned that we're mandating that the very low rating would be posted on the wall chart. That would not be mandated. What we're saying is we don't want to promote competing rating systems by having their ratings on the wall.
I understand.
I think overall this is a very good idea. I think this will work out well. There's been some talk about enforcement. I think the enforcement will not be a problem because if it's publicized that this is the rule and anybody from one of the well-known systems tries to get away with not revealing their rating, it's not going to take more than a round or two for players, coaches, parents, people associated with other teams to say, aha, this looks like one of them. We'll look him up. Yep, he's got a rating, and the director is notified, and the player will be switched.
So, first of all, it seems to me, I mean, I've gone to a lot of scholastics, and it's clearly wildly successful, and I'm wondering why we think there was something that's wildly successful. The second thing I would say is, we're the main concern here, let's just call it what it is, we're all concerned about kids, and actually parents through their kids, sandbagging, right? That's what it is. Well, yeah, I mean, let's make, you're concerned, yeah, because you're saying this kid's got a 500 rating here and it's really 1,200. You know what? I coach these kids. I've talked to these parents. I know. Right? That's the reality. Well, you call it what you want, but if someone's a 1,200 player with a 500 rating, and I think that this runs a risk of encouraging kids to throw games at the local level just so they can get their rating down. So their rating won't be too high over their USCF rating. And the next question I would posit to you is, given the fact that the bell curve is different for an all-youth organization versus a rating system that has adults and everybody else, at what point do if the K3 has a U750 section, at what point does a K3 person with an NWSRS rating come in and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's too high. Is it 800? Is it 900? Is it 1-for-1? We don't do that with anybody else. Canadian ratings are adjusted. Everybody else's ratings are adjusted. At what point is that too much? And we don't know. We just we leave it open to the rating committee. But, I think there's a lot of vagaries here, and I think you're running the risk of screwing around with something that's wildly successful. I don't see why we need to do it.
Bill?
Yeah, on the wildly successful.
2 minutes, Bill.
He's right. It is wildly successful. And that's why we got this problem, because it's grown to the point that we had to implement under sections because the sections are way too large to ever reach a one perfect score champion. But the problem is it's about to devolve. It's so successful, and the meaning of the trophies in these under sections are so important for the validation of programs and raising funds for programs that people are starting to use different tactics to game the system. And it's been a significant problem only with the elementary that we've seen thus far, but it has been a significant problem. That's why we have to address it. And we're trying to find the most fair way to address it to keep a level and fair playing field. So I do encourage the delegates to support this, because if we don't do something about it, then everyone else that depends on success at these tournaments are going to have to also find their own ways to game the system, and it's going to devolve into a mess. Or they're going to stop coming.
Mike?
I think this is about 90% of a good idea. The problem is the other 10% is a lousy idea. Specifically the having to do with not allowing those ratings to be used for wall charts or for parent purposes. What if, for example, that other rating is a FIDE rating? We would now allow any TD to use that rating to place and pair somebody. According to this, we would not allow that at Supernationals. I think the issue of what happens in the top section is also not particularly well covered. My suggestion is, I don't think we're going to be able to quite clean this up on the floor. I would suggest that the proposers of this have this referred back to them for study and review again as the first order of business tomorrow morning.
I have a bit of information. Are international players allowed at the national scholastics?
If they are a student At a high school such as a foreign exchange student, yes, the players at the National Scholastics must be members or students at a U.S. school.
Or a U.S. territory.
Or a U.S. territory. Yeah, we had a question from someone in Canada a couple of years ago. We looked at the regulations, and he or she, I'm not sure which it was not eligible.
And you certainly could be a U.S. student that has a substantial disparity between their USCF rating and their FIDE rating.
Mike, are you done?
I offered a suggestion to the proposers. I haven't gotten a response from them yet.
So, we have a lot of proposals, but I think we would like to keep it like this and let's see how it goes.
Holly?
Holly Wright, New York. I've coached at nationals, and I can remember having players get paired against kids with these, very low USCF ratings, and going, it's only 700, and then finding out that it was, rating under another system was substantially higher. I think we should take these ratings into consideration. I played a kid in this tournament. His USCF was 1190. His Washington rating was 1305. And then I looked at his last tournament, which was a dual-rated tournament. There was a huge discrepancy between the opponents, like 1030 USCF, 1450 Washington, Northwest. So I think we really do need to take these ratings into account and, maybe work on the wording in terms of whether we want to, have that used for rating, parent purposes.
I call the question.
Any objections? An objection?
What are we voting on? Yeah, I would have to call it a question.
Procedurally, I think there's a friendly amendment that's been offered and accepted.
Have you accepted the friendly amendment?
In light of what Mike Ronan said, we could insert the word necessarily in front of not be published, not necessarily be published. I think that would resolve. I was trying to resolve your point. If that is acceptable, we will take that as a friendly amendment.
Could we clarify what that does to the motion then, please?
You could. What it would mean is that the TD would then have the discretion to publish the other rating. Have to,
and use it for variance as well.
I think it just clarifies.
All right, I have, I've talked to a few of the co-sponsors, and we have no problem with that being a friendly amendment.
There was a motion.
The problem that I just saw arise, if you allow me, is that the question was called before the amendment was made. So we can only vote on the wording before the suggested change.
I withdraw.
Thank you, Bill.
Discussion continues.
Is it my turn yet?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
now,
it is.
Call the question. Actually, I want to move to do what Mike had said. I want to move that we put a hold on this motion until tomorrow morning and send it back to the Scholastic Committee for rewording. Then they can come back to this body again. First thing tomorrow morning.
Second.
It was moved and seconded that this motion be postponed until tomorrow morning and be brought back with
It would
new
be the
wording.
first order of business tomorrow morning.
First order of business tomorrow morning. Is there any discussion on the motion to delay until tomorrow morning? Seeing no objection, let's vote on the motion to delay. All in favor?
First order of business in the morning.
Yes, first order of business in the morning. All opposed? Motion passes. Yes, it's 4:30 now. Before we move on to 1216D, Mike is going to make an announcement.
Just a minute of your time. I know some of you leave tomorrow or leave tonight. Guy and Sandy, if you want to start passing those out, I'd appreciate it. I just want to encourage everyone to attend the U.S. Open next year in Madison, Wisconsin. It's the first time that will be held in Wisconsin since 1953. So it's about time that it comes back, and we do appreciate the USCF giving us the opportunity to host the event next year. I'm taking this time now because Guy and Sandy are going to pass out a couple of items for the delegates. One of them is a flyer that I have created. Talks about, it gives a little information on the hotel. The Room Black opens on January 20th. There are driving directions for those of you that live in the Midwest. There's flight information on the airlines and service Dane County Regional Airport. Shh, please. I've also got a number of restaurants. It's in a great location. It's the Madison Marriott West, actually in Middleton. There's a Greenway Station, which has about 15 restaurants within about an 11-minute walk of the hotel. I've also got a number of links to attractions in the area and other information as well. I have got this document electronically. If you want to send me an email, I'll be glad to send it to you so that you have all of the links. So, Guy and Sandy, looks like I'm passing those out, and I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is ADM 12-16D, Dwayne and Isabel.
As you've heard, Isabel.
I'm Isabel Minifar, Southern California. On behalf of the Women's Committee, we move that a girls K-12 national invitational tournament be held at the U.S. Open in conjunction with the Denver and Farber tournament. The participants to receive a 50% reduction in the U.S. Open entry fee, organized in the same fashion as the Denver Farber.
Dwayne?
We done this all?
Yeah, you're done? Yes, is there any discussion or questions?
I don't, actually on the Barber and the other, we don't have a motion for that, we just do it as the workshop, we agree to do it, and as we would obviously do, we do it for the girls. I don't think it has to be in the motion, so it's just something we do.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll call the question.
Do we have the wording of the
Yeah, this sounds like a good idea. The board has tried holding the Girls Junior Open and has not been well attended, and it seems like the invitational approach, similar to the Denker and Barber, would probably draw more players. So I'm in favor of this.
I I have a question. We have a Decker committee, we have a Barber committee. Does this mean we're going to create another committee for this particular tournament? Just asking.
Dwayne and Isabel, have you thought through that yet?
No.
I suggest that the women's committee just be involved with the
It can be under
Decker
the
and Barber.
auspices of the Women's Committee if the delegates direct.